Welcome everyone to a new tutorial. This is something we have never tried before, a landscape. And so many subscribers have been asking for this, I thought we would give it a try. First of all, you need to start practicing drawing mountains. This is a lot easier than it looks. You basically just sketch some very simple cartoony mountains on a piece of paper, and then you're going to cut them down the middle with a jaggedy line to make a ridge line. And then it's really just a matter of shading that in. So what you should do is just grab a piece of paper and just start sketching out some mountains. Around here the mountains are very pointy, that's why I did pointy mountains. But you could do rounded ones, a mountain that's familiar where you live, or a favorite mountain that you have. Just go ahead and sketch them out and decide which side that you want the light to come in on. You want it the sun coming up on the left or the right, and then you'll just shade one half of the mountain to start to give it the 3D effect. And I decided my mountain's going to have a little bit of snow on it, so I left a few snow fields and maybe some clouds, thinking about the clouds, just kind of sketching. And I did several sketches like this. I added trees on some and just got to where I wanted it, and decided I was going to do a mountain range and then have some water in the foreground and maybe a few green island hills too, and then a big sunset in the back. So now I'm actually sketching it onto my canvas and using a little paper circle here to make the sun. I decided to center the sun. Even though I prefer offsetting things, I thought for this design I would go ahead and center it and just see. And I'm going to fill in the background color with this deep red. And I thought about putting clouds in. I left space for them and then painted the rest of the red. And then I didn't like the clouds, so I just painted over them. Painted the sun in orange. This is just our background color. I'll be dotting over the top of this. And then added a completely black background for the mountains and the water and the hills. So I let that dry, and now I'm reapplying some guidelines with my General's charcoal white pencil. I wanted to do some radials for the sunset. I was kind of going for like a lighthouse effect where the sunbeams radiate out like that. So I used my stencil, and you can use a piece of paper to fold it up if you need something to help you get your radials straight. And then I used a ruler to sketch those out. And now I'm continuing to draw my ridge lines back on because I painted over them. But I kind of remember where I had them. And it's okay, you don't really have to be exact on this. That's the cool thing about mountains. You can really be pretty generous with your mistakes. And nobody will know because it's a fantasy landscape. So your mistakes are happy accidents, like Bob Ross would say. So I've got my basic guidelines in there. And I'm going to use a toothpick and some acrylic white paint to dot the entire outline. This will just give it more definition. Then I mixed up the shades that I wanted to use for my mountains. I'm going for kind of a sunset, deep bronze look, but then adding in some purples too, because that's the way they end up looking around here. Right at the apex of the sunsets around here, we get these beautiful glowing mountains. It also kind of reminded me of some of the colors that you'll see on the mountains on Kauai as well, those deep reds that fade out to the purple. So I'm doing the shaded side, and you can see I'm just kind of letting those lines come down the main ridge line, down the center of the mountain, and they're extending toward the bottom, making rock layers in the 3 different colors. And then I'm going to do that on the shady side on all 4 of the mountain peaks. Just continuing to draw those layers out sweeping them down from the ridge line. This will end up having kind of a 3D effect. And once that was done, I started on the sunny side of the mountains, which I'm doing in a kind of a pumpkin orange, and then adding in some peachy tones. And then I also decided to add a couple small bright sky blue snowfields on my mountains. I've done a lot of hiking, and I was just thinking of all of the hikes I've been on and the layers of the mountains that I see and the various folding and the rock, and just tried to capture some of that in this design. If you want to see some of the mountains that I hike on pretty regularly, you can type in your search engine the North Cascades or the Mount Baker Wilderness. Those are a lot of the mountains that I climb. I've done a couple summits, like up on Mount St. Helens. It has a flat top now because it blew off its pointy top, but a lot of our mountains are still very young and very pointy and very sharp like these. So you can see I'm just kind of making these flowing lines. I'm thinking about water flowing down the mountain or glaciers coming down, and they kind of have this flowing effect. So that's why I'm making the lines come down on either side of the ridge line in that way. I'm adding another snowfield here to this mountain, coming down into the moraine. And once I fill in all of this, I'm going to allow it to dry before I start on the sunset. So to do the sunset, I'm making this all up as I go. I genuinely am. That was the hardest part about filming this tutorial. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just had a picture in my mind, but I'm kind of working it out here. And I decided I wanted my sunset to come up from the bottom, starting with yellow at the bottom and then going up to kind of a purple at the top. So I'm going to be going behind the radials here with yellow, my lightest shade of yellow. And I'm making a lot of different sizes of dots, and then adding in the next shade of yellow as I move to the other side of the radial, and then starting to add orange. And you just keep working your way up into the reds and the pinks and the purples all the way up at the top. And then I started in on the hillsides of the islands here in this bright green. I had 3 or 4 different shades of green that I used and just kind of dotted those in kind of a gently rolling kind of a look. And then I went in and filled in the water and decided to do it in kind of a random pattern. Oh, kind of made a mistake there. Got my Q-tip to get it off. And just a random pattern, but I knew I wanted the center part of the water to be the lightest part, as if it's kind of reflecting the mountain. And then I fill in with the darkest shade out at the edges. So I'm going to start blending out to that, using these nice turquoise tones, and then out to more of a ultramarine cobalt blue at the edges. And you just got to keep going back and filling in all those little spaces. I walked away from this several times and took a rest, and then came back and filled in some more dots and hung it on the wall for a while, and then came back and filled in some more dots. Just keep working at it. And there was something I still didn't like. I felt like the mountain needed a little bit more definition, so I started adding some darker tones to the larger mountain just to give it more of a dramatic 3D effect. And then I felt like it was finished. So this took me about a week, just from a couple days sketching, and then trying to mix up the paints that I wanted. I've used the little jars with the snap lids, and thinking about all my mountain climbs, and if I wanted to do a pointy mountain, and if I wanted to do a sunset, If I wanted to incorporate a mandala in the sunset, I might do that at some point. But this time I just wanted to do this big radial thing, and I really like how it turned out. And you know, you can do this. You just need to sit down and do some sketching, and you really can go from a sketch to a finished painting. You can do this. It looks hard, but you can do it. I hope you give it a try. Thanks for watching, everybody.